And it seems like we're live. Hi, everyone. Hello, hello, Liddy. I think we have one of our people here. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes while our special guests get here. And then we're gonna get started. Also, I'm like, ah! Hello, hello, beautiful people.
Okay. Hello, Miss Dorian. Can you hear us?
I can. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, Miss Dorian. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's actually really hot over here for whatever reason. It's probably because y'all just joined, but
Hot.
hot.
Also, we have to keep it appropriate. I'm so sorry.
I know. I'm like...
That was a joke, by the way. I'm kidding.
It's okay. We'll talk afterwards. But we're just gonna wait a couple of minutes before we officially get started. We're gonna wait for people to come in, and then we're just gonna like jump right in. How are y'all doing today? It's like it's been a week, but I'm just glad that it's the weekend. Have y'all been taking care? I hope that y'all been like drinking water, getting nourished.
Water bottle.
Oh my
What?
gosh.
We're being sponsored by what? Being sponsored by water.
Sponsored by H2O. We love it.
By H2O. Wait, did you say HBO or H2O? Or both? Both and.
Both.
Sure.
Manifesting both. I love this for us. Slay. Yeah, I couldn't find my water bottle, so I ended up like we get Perrier at like Sam's Club by the bulk. So I was like, all right, I don't typically drink this, but we're fancy today apparently.
Sparkle it up. That's right.
Sparkle it up. That's right. That's right. Cute, 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 cute. Hi everyone. Thank you for everyone that's like currently joining us. We're gonna get started in like 2 more minutes. Does that sound about right, folks? Does that sound okay with you? Cute.
Up to you.
Sounds like a plan, yes. So we'll just wait like 2 more minutes. And are y'all in Cali right now? You don't have to share. You don't have to share, but I was just like, I'm trying to figure out what the background is.
We're in a dungeon.
Oh, I love that.
Also, everyone, we're keeping it like real casual.
Keeping it casual. I love that.
Yeah, very low key, very intimate.
Very, you know, professional yet casual, yet romantic.
Oh, okay. There's actually a candle light over there.
Love that for y'all.
Wow.
Crying. Sounds good. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We have a I guess welcome everyone. Who am I? Who is she? Who is she? Like, why is she here? Hi everyone. My name is Dorian Gomez Pestaña. I use she, they pronouns interchangeably, and I am so excited and so honored to be facilitating today's conversation. I'll be doing like a visual description of myself, and then I'll jump into a couple of words that I have to share and that I would like to share. And also I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our very lovely and special guest that we have here today. So who am I? Visual description. I am wearing a tank top. It's brown, and I am a light brown femme presenting person with long hair. It's currently wet because I showered. So that's that's the quick visual description. In my background, I have a bookshelf, and I am in a room and sitting in a chair. So anyways, today we are having UFC's Artist Spotlight Instagram Live series, which is a monthly 45-minute conversation between artists who happen to share the undocumented experience. This IG Live takes us to the end of season 1. Of a virtual space for our members to share their intersectional experiences, projects, and artistry. We want to give a special thank you to the MacArthur Foundation. Thank you so much for funding this series. Shout out. Thank you also to UFC and the PR and Visibility Subcommittee for doing a lot of the work that goes into making these lives possible. And today, we have some of the people that are behind the unseen film. So with that being said, Set, Pedro, please introduce us, tell us who you are, and then we'll jump right into the conversation. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I'll go start. Hey everyone, Ms. Dorian, thank you for facilitating this space. Can folks hear me loud and clear? Can you hear me loud and clear, Ms. Dorian? Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Dorian, our co-producer, for producing this moment along with Lydiette and Mario behind the scenes. And so also shout out to Josin, our post-production producer for Unseen, among many other things, editor of our trailer. You name it, Josin's done it too. So
Yes.
My name is Set Hernandez. I use they, them pronouns. She, him, she, her, he, him are also okay with me. I have olive complexion, round face, black rimmed glasses, black beard, black short hair. I'm wearing a vest on top of a sweater because it's cold here where we are. We're not going to tell you where we are, but it's hint, it's cold here. And yes, and I'm team member of Unseen. I'll pass it on to Pedro.
Hey all, Ms. Dorian, everyone from the UFC. Thank you so much for having us here. This is really cool, and I'm really excited to be here with all. My name is Pedro. I am also part of the Unseen team. Sorry. Okay. I prefer to pronounce he, him, they, them. Visual description of myself. I am wearing a black hat, black t-shirt, brown skin, wearing glasses. Yep.
Incredible. Thank you both so much for joining us today. It is honestly so exciting to be in this space too. I was thinking about how a year ago, to pretty much actually today maybe, I can't quite remember, but Set had reached out to me to be like, hey, do you want to work on something we have going on for Unseen? So it's crazy being here a year later and seeing how much things have changed, and also things have manifested into all of these really amazing and great things. I guess I would love for either one of you to share a little bit about Unseen. Tell us about some of the themes that get explored within the film, and from there I'll go into other questions about how your experience has been, because spoiler alert, we've recently had the world premiere and also the US premiere, so I'd love to also dive into that in a bit.
Amazing. Thank you, Ms. Dorian. Pedro, do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
You can start.
Okay, I'll start first. Okay. We're always shy here, but really in real life we're not shy. I'm kidding. That was a joke. I'm kidding. But maybe I'll start off by saying sharing a little bit more about what Unseen is. Maybe folks can also find a trailer online for Unseen, and they can go to unseen-film.com to learn more about the film. But in essence, it's funny hearing Pedro describe himself earlier, because the film is actually about Pedro, our superstar for the film. The film follows Pedro's journey as he becomes a social worker, and in the course of 7 years that we were working on the project together. And while Pedro is navigating his journey to become a social worker, we're also exploring the themes and the different issues that he's navigating in life around mental health, being a person with disabilities, and also being undocumented. And it's funny talking about the film next to Pedro because it's literally about him, and I'm like talking about him next to him. But I think that aside from Pedro, I think the film is more than just about the things he goes through. I don't know, friend, do you want to share about the themes and what you think the film is about?
Yes. To me, the original idea was to do this documentary about the intersectionality of being undocumented, being a person with disabilities, and mental health. But I feel that throughout the process, it evolved into something more special and something more personal. It became also part of my healing process, and it became just a hangout from me and Seth and all the beautiful team, where we just were there sharing our own stories and being vulnerable. It also is a tribute to the community, because without my community, without the community, I wouldn't be here. So it's just also highlighting the people who were there throughout my journey that helped me or push me to continue my journey. So yes,
That's super powerful. Thank you both so much for sharing all of the themes that are weaved within Unseen. And I'm curious, like, I feel like Unseen has been in the works for many years, as both of you can attest to. But I'd love to like almost go back in time, right? And take us back to the time when you decided that you wanted to create something and collaborate with Pedro, right? I am curious to know, what did you both originally hope would come out of the film or the project? And how has that evolved today?
Okay, well, maybe because Ms. Dorian directed that question to me,
yes.
I feel attacked. I'm kidding. But, maybe like every relationship, friendship, or like specifically like relationship with any human being that I've been into, I had expectations of what it was going to be. The other person had other expectations. So it didn't work out. But this time around, it actually worked out. Maybe Ms. Dorian, our friendship was like that too. I had an expectation. You had another expectation. But here we are together, the three of us. So all this to say, when like Pedro said earlier, when I first approached him about the film, the idea was literally to, like explore the issues that he's, navigating in his journey. Because at the time he was still a student, right? When we first filmed. And I think also as an organizer, more doing community organizing at the time, I was looking at Pedro's story just within the lens of the issues that he's navigating in his journey. But like Pedro said, in the course of the 6 years that we filmed, I think things kind of transformed. Maybe things transformed because I, as a person, also has changed, and Pedro, also as a human being, has changed. And maybe the way I communicate with Pedro, my intentions, and the way I understood my intentions to work with him has kind of shifted. While in the beginning, the desire was more of a socio-political like approach, like about the social issues that Pedro is navigating. Ultimately, I think by the end of it, we ended up continuing, I think, because there was something meaningful that we were like getting from that experience. To Pedro's point in the film, spoiler alert, at the end, he talks about how the film has been part of his healing journey. And surprise, surprise, at the end of the film, I kind of also say something along those lines. And spoiler alert, exactly, And I think the thing that I don't want to speak on behalf of our team, but what I've heard anecdotally from our team when they tell us about their own experience working on the film also is that they also got something out of working on the film. You know, so I think at this point, the desire in sharing the film with more audiences is how do we replicate the affirmation, the healing, the beauty maybe that we all experience from working on the film with audience members who get to watch the film alongside us.
Oh, that's super powerful. Yeah, I think there's something so beautiful about the way that both of you have gone about it. Because the film in general, I think, is just super intentional, right? And I'm wondering, like, you both have changed, I think, quite a lot in the span of the years that you've been filming Unseen, right? I guess I'm curious what you'd love audiences to take away as they might also be exploring their own healing journeys. Very deep question.
Very good question. Yes, indeed.
Pedro, would you like to take that on?
Sure. To me, I feel that there are two things that keep coming to me when I'm thinking about the film.
Mm.
The power of being in the present, and how sometimes everything seems so chaotic, and sometimes that aversion of not looking towards the future and just focusing on being one step at a just putting one foot in front of the other. Just staying in the present and just keep going, one foot in step of the other. And the other is just like a celebration of resiliency and a celebration of community, because I feel that without community, sometimes I can only speak about myself. Sometimes I feel that things are so unbearable or so unsurmountable that if I don't have my community behind me, if I don't have the people who surround me with their love and support and encouragement, I wouldn't be here. So it's just a celebration of how it does take a village to raise a child. It does take a village so people can have an opportunity. So
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think I relate to that quite a lot, especially going back into my younger self and also my present self as to how I used to navigate life. I think oftentimes I would get so caught up in the future, right? Because the future feels so uncertain all the time, and even more when you have when you're part of the immigrant experience, the undocumented experience, and also when you have a disability, I feel, you know. And so I feel like as time has gone by, I feel like I have felt the need to constantly remind myself, like, the future is uncertain, right? And tomorrow is also not certain. So how can we continue to enjoy the day to day, right? And also, like, when things are heavy, like taking it one step at a time. And I guess now shifting a little bit the conversation into the present, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, I think the project has evolved quite a bit from like a year ago, and also thinking about it now, right? And so first and foremost, I want to congratulate you both for premiering one at Hot Dogs. We had the world premiere in Canada at Hot Dogs, and also for having the US premiere at the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. And I'm curious to hear from you both. If you could share a little bit about the experiences that you've had with interactions and reactions that you've received from people that have experienced the film.
Maybe I can start. Well, the tricky part when we premiered in Toronto is that because we're undocumented, we couldn't be there in person, you know. But but we joined virtually over Zoom, and the folks that were there in person were telling us that it seems to me like the energy that we had during our LA premiere was similar to the energy that was there in Toronto. You know, I think my most favorite part about watching the film with an audience. We were talking about this when I picked up Pedro and his family, you know, like earlier, that there were moments in the film that people would laugh that I never thought was that funny. And then people be laughing and I was like, okay, well, sure, I'll laugh along. Ha 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 ha. You know, so I think, you know, that was like a really in terms of the narrative and the story, you know, that was really interesting. But I would say I think my most favorite part is that, you know, even if a person doesn't share the identities that Pedro has, folks still resonate with the story, you know? And I think because the film isn't just about Pedro's struggles and identities, the film indeed is about, you know, things beyond that. You know, it is about that and more, you know, like it's about what Pedro said, like resilience, community, being present, you know. I think also maybe one thing that I would also add is I think the film is about being vulnerable, you know, like unseen is blurry, you know, for the most part, the film. And it gives us the opportunity to really be thoughtful about what we show, what we don't show, and when we show, you know, things. And while I can say that about the film, I think I can say that also about myself as an individual. You know, I curate who I am to the world. At this moment, I'm with you both. I'm with the folks on the online, and I'm curating what part of myself I'll show to you all. You know, at other times, I'm gonna hide those things that I'm showing with you all when I'm with another group of people. You know, and I think that my mom was asking me what vulnerability means in Tagalog. You know, I was trying to explain to her, oh my God, what is vulnerability? You know, and I think like that process of explaining maybe what vulnerability is kind of like speaks in the film. And I think that's what also a lot of audiences, you know, kind of resonate with. So all this to say, I think like the the affirmation that the film seeks to provide, I think audiences so far have been receiving that, and that's been really humbling. Do you want to add anything else, friend? Do you feel the same way?
Yes, you couldn't say it better.
That's incredible. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be at the US premiere at the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival, and I felt pretty shook at the amount of like laughter that I would hear every now and then, because I feel like I've watched the film so many times by now that I've like forgotten what it was like to watch it for the first time. I still cry every single time, don't get me wrong, but I didn't realize like where people would find humor in this story, you know, because like I felt like at times I've watched it so many times that I just got caught up in the tears, you know, and like the tears remained, but the laughter was like, oh my God, like, yeah, you're right. Certain scenes bring a lot of joy to this story, and even you're like both of you just like experiencing life. I think is something that is particular narratives that I don't think I see enough in film, especially as an immigrant, and also maybe in like other narratives that have themes related to accessibility and disability. And so I'm curious about why you felt it was so important to showcase that through Unseen.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So it's so interesting that you asked that question because I feel that it's important to highlight the complexity of a person. Then a person can have multiple identities, and sometimes I feel that in many of the projects, they're just highlight one of the identities of the person, or like the undocumented person, the blind person, or the person that suffers from depression. But what about if we combine everything that we are and just show it as it is? The funny parts, the good times, the bad times, the sad times. Because I feel that life is very complex, and sometimes we don't honor that. And just how at the same time, in 1 minute we can be laughing our butts off, but in the second, the minute after we're crying. So that's why I feel that being vulnerable in this project was very important, just in order to highlight that complexity of the human existence.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think it's so important to remind ourselves that even in film, like at the end of the day, we're human beings, and there's so much more to than just the struggle. So thank you for sharing that with us, Pedro. I'm gonna go back a little bit to the premiere because I think you mentioned something. You both mentioned something very interesting in regards to the world premiere, and you mentioned that you joined via Zoom. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because I feel like one, immigration is a really big part of the film, but I'd love to hear about how that has either affected, like or maybe even helped with the festival run.
What a question, Ms. Dorian. Also, if ever you have any reflections about it, please do spill the tea also.
Oh, oh, I
would
will.
I would say, I think being an undocumented immigrant filmmaker, and working with undocumented immigrant filmmakers, in whether it's in the collective, when I was, in the leadership role in the collective, still part of the collective now.
Membership team.
That's membership team, that's right. And also, I guess maybe what I'm trying to get at is, our undocumented experience, I think, has been a big factor in the bringing to life of this film. Whether it was in applying for grants, in the beginning. Maybe part of the reason it took 7 years to make this film is because during the first 4 years, we had no opportunities open for undocumented folks, and along the way of making the film, the collective began because I realized, oh my God, I'm not the only one, who was experiencing this, like that's how I met Liddy, like Miss Dorian, like, and so many other folks from our community who are going through the same things, like made it inevitable to organize so that, we really uplift the talent within our community, and I think also even through distribution, so in the course of advocating for our community, we eventually were able to open up grant opportunities that allowed undocumented folks, including myself, working on Unseen, to be able to be eligible for grants, But then now in this distribution phase, we're recognizing how the journey continues, like being able to travel, even like being with our families for our premieres is not always even easy because even we ourselves cannot travel. And to your point about the world premiere, not be there, in Toronto. But I should say, well, part of one of the things that we name in the film is we don't want to romanticize struggle, or like how do we grapple with the experience of sometimes struggle exists. How do we find the beauty in that, but not romanticize it too much? And how do we grapple with all of those nuances? I think for me, I would say that the film had the journey that it was supposed to have. Because I feel that if this film was made within 2 years, 5 years ago, it wouldn't be the film that it is now, because I think neither Pedro or I are the people that we are now, and I was gonna say a joke, but I was like, oh, never mind, it's not the space for other jokes. I should have stand-up special like
You should. We should set that up for you, Miss Pet.
But all this to say, our immigration status has been indeed part of the challenges that we've navigated, but I would also say it allowed us to meet other community. I think maybe part of it too with Unseen is how do we make sure that we provide opportunities to our community by making this film. Something that I'm really proud about with our team is that our filmmaking team reflects the experiences that are reflected on the screen. We have filmmakers who are immigrants, who are undocumented, have disabilities, who are queer, non-binary, trans, femme, and how do we make sure that when we when our film rises, we all rise together as a community. In the spirit of this phrase, isang bagsak, which was used during the farm workers movement, when one of us fall, we all fall together, but when one of us rises, we rise together.
Super powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Miss Set. And I'm so glad that you touched on the crew, because on the crew and in general the team, because listen, okay, so I feel like I've been part of productions that look a very particular way. I feel like throughout the years, film has created a particular standard of working conditions and just like what is expected of each other, right? But I feel like working for Unseen, personally, it was so refreshing to be a part of such a unique crew. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about, like the badass crew that we have and why it is a bit different than a traditional production crew.
I can start off again, maybe, if that's helpful. Also, Ms. Dorian, like I said, we're interested in hearing your perspective too.
I will jump in, but I'm also moderating this conversation.
God, I love it. She's wearing all the hats. She's a crew member. She's moderating. She's UFC. She's Unseen. I love it. Yes, but to your point, Ms. Dorian, I think with Unseen, I think it's I hear a lot of producers. I was listening to a few webinars with different producers, and one of the producers, she produced this film called Nanny that came out last year, which is on Amazon. She was saying how she loves working with her friends, and in the course of making Unseen, I would say like, oh my God, it's so fun to work with people that I know and love. Of course, it's not always easy. We don't want to romanticize that experience because, like when there's tension, it could affect your personal relationships, but I think we also found ways to really center each other's humanity and be caring towards each other when we navigate struggle, because it wasn't always like just laughter, like for example, we have meetings sometimes, and in our meetings sometimes, for example, Dorian and I would have meetings and we'd be like, are we hanging out or are we having a meeting? That's like when I film with Pedro. Are we working or are we hanging out? What are we doing? I don't know.
I feel that way right now. I'm like, are we hanging out? Are we having a meeting?
You know what I mean? Like, what are the three of us doing right here? Are we hanging out or are we like in a session? You know what I mean? So all this to say, I think, being intentional of working with people in my community, I think is something that we're really deliberate about, because also if we don't provide opportunities for our community, who else will, and I think also, part of the desire of the film is that Unseen builds upon the legacy of other undocumented artists, like Dreamers Adrift with Julio Sagado, Jesus Iñiguez, Armando Ibanez, with Undocumented Tales, also similar, working with other undocumented folks and lifting up undocumented talent. Because the talent in our community for undocumented folks, artists with disabilities, the talent is here, It's about finding and making sure that the opportunities are reaching these talented individuals so that projects like Unseen are not, so few in between, but rather commonplace, because our stories should be out there all the time. Also, Nirav is here in this call. Like, Nirav is out here, like, with films like Triple Threat, acting, writing, directing, producing, you name it. Like, the talent literally is in this call right now, so gotta uplift that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm also curious to hear from you, Pedro, because I feel like from the talent perspective, I'm curious to hear how important it was or like why it is even important to have this kind of representation on screen.
I feel that representation matters a lot because, again, to me, it was hanging out with friends. To me, it was being with friends, being in community, just being vulnerable with each other. Because why or how are you going to ask someone to be vulnerable if you're not willing to be vulnerable yourself?
Damn.
So, and I feel that, and I was talking to someone about this, and because I felt that, that if it was a different type of crew, I would have felt like if I was a frog that was being dissected. So I would just be a subject instead of a participant, and that's a big difference. So as Seth and the crew always make me feel like part of the team, like a participant. I was involved in the film, and I was always keeping I was always keeping the loop. So allowing that transparency, having that communication, and fostering that vulnerability, I feel that allowed me to open up myself and present myself as who I am.
Mm-hmm. That's super beautiful. Yeah, I relate to that quite a bit actually, because I feel like as a fellow filmmaker myself, I've been in multiple parts of the production phase, right? Because I feel like I've been, aside from being a filmmaker, I've also been the person in front of the camera and understand how oftentimes if you're not with the right group of people, or if the person that is in charge of that production does not make you feel safe, like it's hard to be vulnerable and almost be your most authentic self. So I appreciate you sharing that, Pedro. I wanna jump back a little bit on regards to like the crew and like what it took to make this project happen, right? And the badassery of like the human beings that made this possible. And I'm curious to hear from you, Misat, because I like I mentioned, I've watched the film multiple times in various forms. But during the premiere, it was actually my first time watching it with audio descriptions. Can you tell us a little bit about the accessibility components that that take part through Unseen, what that process was like, the challenges, and also I'm curious to hear from you, Pedro, like how that experience was for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can start. I think, part of what we really wanted to make sure with the film from the get-go, maybe like we were very conscious about who the audience is. I would tell Pedro, the main audience, from my perspective as a director, the main audience for the film has always been him. I want Pedro, to feel that after watching the final version of the film, which happened last Saturday, that he could say, "My God, Seth, you understood me. This film is about me." Pedro actually said those things to me, so I'm like crying. So but how do we make sure that the film is accessible, for Pedro? So Pedro in the beginning was really my teacher in terms of audio descriptions, and for folks that are not familiar with audio descriptions, when you're watching a streaming platform, even when you're in a movie theater, you can get these headsets that provide a separate audio track that describes to you what is happening visually in the film, and for Unseen, in the course of the 7 years of working on this, I was able to really meet a lot of amazing, incredible collaborators. I also just want to give a shout out to, I think so much of making a film is about finding people who believe in you and believe in the work you're doing. I want to give a shout out to our producing team, Ms. Diane Kwan, like literally like one of the first people to like believe in Unseen, and bring on a producing team, Day Al Mohammed, Felix and Dara, who to this day make us feel believed, feel like they believe in the work that we're doing. And when I think, a lot about making your first film is about finding people who make you feel like you're doing something amazing, because it's easy to lose that fuel if you don't have that, group of people that's pushing you. Speaking of people who push you, also big shout out to Cheryl Green, our accessibility producer, who introduced us to so many people from her community, including our, other accessibility producer, Thomas Reed. Thomas and Cheryl really led the captioning process and the audio description process to make sure that the film is accessible, for the community that we want to reach with the film. Thomas also has a podcast called Read My Mind, which has a particular seasons and episodes that speak to audio descriptions, and all this to say, captioning, accessibility, audio descriptions has been a big part of the aesthetics of the film. Audio descriptions is not a last minute check box that we have to mark off. That's a technicality to comply with certain accessibility things. Sure, we get to do that, but it's not because we want to tick off a box. It's because it's just part of the aesthetic of the film. There was no version of Unseen that could exist without it being accessible, because it just wouldn't. It's like making a film without. Actually, you can make a film however you want, because people were telling me you cannot make a film this way, and I was like, watch, so. But yes.
Wow. That's incredible. Thank you for reminding us about that, because I think oftentimes I've watched projects, and even because I watch a lot of content with subtitles, and oftentimes it's like dubbed, and even more recently, like I started experiencing more content with audio descriptions themselves, and some of them end up feeling a little bland. Other times they just feel very basic, and I'm just like, where's the flavor? Like, where's the description? So I'm curious to hear also from you, Pedro, in your experience with the accessibility components that exist within Unseen.
I feel that I can summarize all with the statement that this is the first film that I watch about a blind person that actually a blind person can watch.
T. Wow. That's, yeah. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yes, just to break it down a little bit. Most of these films about a person who is blind is just you see that person going around things, or just like to mimic or emulate the experiences of that person, but in reality is the way that they portrayed it is in a visual way, ironically. So
yeah,
they are trying to relate that experience, but not to the blind community, but to the sighted community. And by the way, pushing aside the community from the protagonist or the talent. So it doesn't make sense. So and on Unseen, that was one of the main things. How can we make it accessible to the people who are part of the film, who are actually on camera? Because like my parents, they are not their native language is Spanish. So how can we make this also accessible for them? How can we make this accessible also even for the people who speak English and doesn't speak Spanish? So how can we make sure that no one gets left behind? It's a very tricky task, but for sure Unseen and the beautiful team that was behind it make their best effort to try to include as many people as possible, to make it as accessible as possible for not only the people with disabilities, but also for other communities.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's super important to remind ourselves, like, who is our main audience, right? And is our main audience actually the people that need to be that should they be the considered main audience, right? I'm gonna shift a little bit to questions that we've gotten from a couple members in the audience, and we're gonna go ahead and start with a question from our incredible Lydia.
Betty, we love you.
Who's also part of the PR and Visibility Subcommittee at the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective, which made this IG Live possible. So she is asking, question for y'all. Knowing all of the nuances of your experiences working with this film and in life in general, with so many changes and crises happening in the world, how do you practice wellness and care emotionally, spiritually, etc.?
Ooh. I sound like a broken record, but being with my family, being in community, recharge my batteries, and also in a more personal level, being active, going for a run. That's 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 my happy place, running.
Miss that.
Miss Dorian, I'm curious about you. Actually, you
Yes.
tell us. You tell us.
I'm
You
on
take
the
care of yourself.
spot. Dang, that's a hard one because I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I feel like some of the things that have worked for me in regards to like practicing wellness and care typically have to do with honestly me just like winding down and doing nothing. Like just sitting still and existing is sometimes what I need. I sometimes I just need to be alone and like be with my thoughts and also allow myself to feel because I think oftentimes I have found myself that it's really easy to not feel things, you know, but it's like when I'm practicing like really being with myself and also with acknowledging like all of these events that are currently happening on a day-to-day basis, I have to remind myself like I'm a human being and like I have feelings and I feel things and I think it's so important to like if I need to cry it out, cry it out. If I need to laugh, I'll laugh, you know, and if I need to talk about it, I'll talk about it, you know, and at the end of the day, like it's part of life, unfortunately, and sometimes fortunately. And so, other times, just like being outside is super helpful, like really getting that vitamin, that sun vitamin in. That, yeah, that's typically how I've been practicing, at least for myself, wellness and care. So I'll throw it back to you, Miss.
Let me catch that ball. I was gonna say, wow, yeah, thank you for y'all's response, Pedro and Missouri, and for the question, lady. I would say, you know, I think for most of my life, I actually never thought of self-care. I think I used work as a way to run away from the things that I feel. Maybe like the dreamer narrative, of like this like super overachiever, undocumented young person. I think I fit that narrative when I was younger, and maybe part of it is because I was so worried about what the future does not hold for me, and trying to work my butt off, whatever that meant, was probably like my addiction, to run away from the things that I was scared of. So I should say, like right now, actually, for Unseen, like I feel tired, to be honest, and I feel stressed. Part of me likes it because then I don't have to worry about the things I was worrying about a few months ago, you know? And part of me also doesn't want that to be the norm. I want to be able to sit with my worries, uncertainties, whether I'm busy or not, And I think for me, what I like what Pedro was saying, I love hanging out with when we quick aside, back behind the scenes situation. Last October we had a screening together. Miss Dorian, Pedro, my family, Pedro's family. I wish Pedro Dorian's parents were there too, but we had a dinner together. And it was so fun. Like we were just like just laughing. I have no idea, why, but like I remember why. But it was just like I just
Scandalous.
love being with people that I love and care about, and I love also listening and talking to people. I think sharing space, as in like being intentional and like when I'm present with people, I'm getting to understand how are you, and you get to be really interested in how I'm doing. That's like my most favorite self-care activity, being present with people that I love and care about.
Yes, shout out. Ah, we have a couple other questions actually, so we'll go back to those, and we have a question from Nirav. Shout out. Also part of the collective and leadership team. Woo woo! And so Nirav says, Set, can you explain more about the visual style of the film and how did you achieve it? It's truly groundbreaking.
Oh my God. Wow. Mira, thank you for all your generous words towards us. I should say the films the film film in general is like a very visual medium, as people say, and in the spirit of what we were talking earlier about access, like Pedro's enjoyment has always been my priority. I want Pedro to really enjoy the film. I don't want Pedro to enjoy the film less than a sighted person. Like if anything, Pedro should enjoy it more than another person. So how do we make a film that's not so much based on visuals, but rather based on like sound? So in essence, with the experience of watching a film through audio descriptions, I understood that there's an opportunity to watch a film by listening as opposed to leaning into visual information. So that was kind of like the impetus to use a visual aesthetic that was more blurry. I was also telling Pedro, I don't know if you remember this, friend, but like last year when I was explaining to you like how the film story is kind of looking, it's like what am I looking at? Like, what is this? Like, I don't kind of understand what's happening, but something's happening. And then Pedro says like, oh, that sounds like my life. Like something's happening, but I don't know what it is, but it's definitely happening. I think like that's the spirit, that we ambiguity, and to our point earlier about showing, not showing, and what's present, on screen is kind of like the guide. I should also say that watching a lot of movies, I think, is my most favorite form of education, as a filmmaker. The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, if anyone has ever watched this film by Julian Schnabel, it's a film, also that has a similar like first person experience, to a certain extent, and being able to capture cinematography that's not reliant on the mainstream, like, aesthetic of like, you have this person speaking, you show them, you have this other person speaking, you cut to them. And how do we like imagine cinema in a more expansive way, not be stuck in quote unquote tradition?
Thank you so much for sharing that, Miss Set. We have another question from Abi, who is also another member
Abi!
from
Oh my God!
UFC. Shout out. And they're asking, how was the post-production process? And what was the approach towards the editing of the film?
Ooh, great question. Maybe I'll answer that question. Okay, if that's helpful. Abi, I love you. I adore you. Also, friends, Abi has a film that they're working on right now.
Yeah.
Support Abi. He's like super brilliant and talented filmmaker based in Boston. Abi, thank you for all your love and generosity towards us. To my point earlier, our EP Diane, she would tell me, watch films that you like. Actually, in finding collaborators, watch films that you like, and then look through the credits. If it's of course, it has to be a film that's like current. I can't be watching a 1930s film and be expecting to like reaching out to the people in the credits, But finding collaborators like really was through watching films, looking through the credits, and then finding people who know the people in the credits. So that was also an approach that we had. But for the editing style of the film, I would say actually watching films, but also reading poems. I think poetry, actually, when I was working with our editors, Daniel Chavez Fontiveros, our lead editor, and then our associate editor, Claudia Ramirez, also a member of the collective, we would be having meetings, and I would tell them, I want the film to feel like a poem. When I read a poem, my experience with reading poems is that poems are very indirect. I don't always know what the poem is telling me. The sentence structures don't always make sense, especially more contemporary poems, but the poem expresses a feeling regardless of how logical the words flow. I think that's the spirit of Unseen also. How do we capture the flow of feelings that is embodied in this film? And how, because I think being undocumented and being a human being, is just like that. We don't always know what we're going through. When I was doing group therapy last year or earlier this year, sorry, like everything just feels like condensed in time. Someone was telling me in our group therapy that trauma, the way I experienced trauma, it really resonated with me, was that trauma happens to us when we don't even know it. And it's not until a much later time that we realize, oh my gosh, that experience was traumatic. All I know is that the symptom is happening in me all the time. You know, I think that's what feelings in a film could feel like. We don't know really what's happening, but the feeling, we always feel it every minute, every frame of the film. And the poem feels like that too. So poetry by Mary Oliver, poetry by Joy Harjo in particular. There's this poem called The Eagle Poem that really has been an inspiration in the structure of the film.
Super beautiful. Yeah, I think it's I feel like it translates very well into the film. And I mean I remember you mentioning like that you would be watching like I think you would be watching like a film a day during the post-production phase of the film. And with that, I'm gonna do a quick shift to a slight mood and with a question from Lidieth, and she's asking, what is your happiest and most memorable moment in the process of making this film? And if you could start, Pedro, and then we'll jump back to Set.
Oh, happiest and most memorable moment.
If there are any.
Oh. Pedro's like, I hated every moment.
No, not at all. Actually, I'm gonna go back to October of last year when we all shared the bread, and we just have Seth and his beautiful family put together this beautiful traditional Filipino feast for everyone, and it was an amazing treat. And just beyond the beautiful setting and the wonderful and delicious food, just being with them, laughing, just sharing stories. It was just such a touching and beautiful moment, and a moment that Miss Dorian and Miss Ed were there. That was a beautiful, beautiful moment.
A reunion.
A reunion. Yep.
We love it.
Mm-hmm.
I would add, thank you, Miss Dorian. I would add my most favorite thing about the film, I think, are the things that don't happen in front of the camera. You know, and Pedro's example is one of those. You know, I think sometimes I think documentary filmmakers, my experience of documentary filmmakers, especially who are like just so career oriented, you know, I feel like sometimes documentary filmmakers are all about capturing every special moment. You know, I'm a firm believer that unseen, this is really, I was driving earlier. I'm sorry, this is like a long-winded response, but what I'm trying to say is, you know, I was reflecting on certain moments in the film that I was like, you know, and at that very moment, I was like, I wish I did it differently. But in retrospect, I'm like, wow, things happened just the way they were supposed to happen. You know, we didn't capture every moment that were important and incredible, but the moments that we did capture were the right moments that were important to the making of the film and the final film itself. You know, I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is like, you know, regrets is not a thing that, you know, I try to live by, you know, and there's a guiding spirit. I think our ancestors were guiding us in the journey of making this film. And all this to say that my most favorite, you know, moments in the film are indeed the times where I just got to know Pedro, you know, our team, moments where we're being vulnerable with each other. You know, I think I'm really interested in building relationships and friendships and family, you know, like with people in my life, chosen family, you know, because I think, you know, we got to lean on each other, you know, and how do we really create meaningful relationships where we all feel affirmed? And I think in the course of making Unseen, the behind the scenes moment contributed to that opportunity to get to know another person and really listen to what they're going through. And I think, you know, that's not always captured on the camera, but they're my most favorite experiences. I don't know, Ms. Ern, what was your favorite experience?
Oh, exposed again. I was like trying to like swerve away from the question.
Like a chancla. I'm kidding.
Like a chancla.
This is gonna be super cheesy, but I really feel like probably like one of the most memorable moments was when you first approached me, Miss Set, about working for Unseen, and it was actually for transcriptions because I got to experience. I feel like I got to know Pedro in such a deep level, and he didn't even know who I was in the first place. But once I like jumped in, first as a just like honestly like as a producer and coming in when we shot back in like last year, I was so one, I was humbled and honored to have gotten the opportunity to like be honestly like welcomed into your circle, and also like get to know Pedro on a much deeper level, Pedro's family and like your community, Pedro, because like it's honestly one of those moments where I realized I'm like, man, like sometimes like all I really need is community sometimes, you know? There are moments in life where I'm like, man, like there's something that there's a hole in my heart. And I felt like being welcomed into that space. It was just such a beautiful experience that I I just felt really lucky to just experience life with you both outside of like working for the project, you know, getting to deepen my relationships with you both was really it was truly like some of my favorite moments of Unseen, to be honest. But with that, we do need to start wrapping up. And I want to ask one last question to you both. And that is, how can people stay connected with you both? And also, like, how can people stay connected with what do you have going on with the film? What do you have going on personally, if you want to share? And how can people stay up to date with whatever is happening with Unseen?
Yes. So tomorrow, actually, we have our Bay Area premiere here at the Campfest Film Festival. Ah, there it is. The tea is out. We're in the Bay Area. Cha cha cha. Yes, we're in San Francisco right now for the Campfest Film Festival because Pedro and I will be in attendance along with our editor Daniel Chavez Fontiveros and also one of our voice actors Brenda Avilahanas. Shout out to Brenda. Tomorrow, Campfest screening at the Roxy, May 14th, 12 p.m. Please do join us if you're able to and you're in the Bay Area. And then in June, July, August, we actually have a few screenings that are percolating. It's not announced yet, but please do follow us on social media at Watch Unseen Film on all platforms. You can go to our website, unseen-film.com, to also follow us and subscribe to our newsletter. Pedro, how about you? Do you want to share anything about
I believe that you got it all.
Amazing. We got it all. We got it all. So please follow, our team members. Miss Dorian's social media is always popping, so, please follow us. Just don't stalk us. I'm kidding. You can stop. I'm kidding.
Just kindly.
Just do it
kindly.
Just do it kindly.
Wow, thank you both so much for sharing space with me, for being in this this social media vortex alongside with me. Thank you to every single one of you that joined us for today's conversation. Please continue to follow at the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective social media. We are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, and so is Unseen. So please be on the lookout for any upcoming artist spotlights in the future. Subscribe to the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective newsletter and continue to support the mission that UFC continues to fight for and bring forth. So yeah, stay tuned for season 2 of our Artist Spotlight series, which is coming in the fall. And thank you so much to the MacArthur Foundation for sponsoring this series. Thank you to all of our community members, to all of our supporters. Couldn't have done it without you. And as PBS would say, it's because of viewers like you. So thank you.
Yeah. And thank you to Lidiet, Mario, Nirav, Ms. Dorian, the whole team at UFC for bringing us all together today.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. Pedro said, have a great time in CampFest. I'm rooting for you all during this time. You guys are going to kill it, and I can't wait for all of the amazing things that continue to happen, both on UFC's side and also with Unseen. So thank you, everyone, and I bid y'all adieu.
Adieu.
Happy Saturday, everyone.
Happy Saturday.
Drink your water. Take your vitamins. Go outside. Get that sun. Talk to y'all soon.
Bye.
Bye.